chapter 30. You haven't done this yet. We're going to do it together as a class, so you aren't required to do this over together. So we are on page something.
218.
Actually, 270.
Shut up, John.
Chapter 30. Christ's lesson on the vine and the branches. You want to introduce so,
I said John.
Oh, I thought you said Joe. Shut up, Joe.
No.
That's not nice.
I said John. It's a thing between John and I. I say something, he makes fun of me. I tell him to shut up.
Well, let's read.
He doesn't sell.
No.
Nothing tasted better to Dale on a cold winter morning than his mother's hot homemade biscuits topped with a large portion of her homemade Concord grape jelly jam or preserves. Just thinking about it made his mouth water. But that tasty treat didn't just happen. A lot of work went into making it possible. His mother, of course, had to can the jam and the jelly, working for hours in the very hot kitchen during the heat of summer and without the benefit of air conditioning. Before that, she had to pick the clusters of purple grapes from the vines, braving all sorts of bees, yellow jackets, and other pesky biting insects who were wanting their share of the sweet juice. But long before any of those clusters of grapes even began growing in the vine, Dale's father had to do his part to make the grape jelly, jam, or preserves possible. Before the grapes began producing, he had to examine the vines closely to determine which branches were broken, weak, diseased, or damaged. Then he took pruning shears and began to cut away the bad branches. Dale's responsibility was to gather all of the discarded branches, pile them in a heap, and then burn them. At first, Dale didn't understand why this task was necessary. Wouldn't they get even more grapes next year if they left all those branches on the vine? And his father explained to him that all those bad branches did was sap the other good branches of their nourishment from the root and the larger part of the vine. By cutting away or pruning the branches, his father was allowing more life-giving grape.
I don't know what it is.
That was weird. Producing, sometimes it just stops. Nutrients to flow to the good branches. That in turn guaranteed a much larger harvest than if they left all the branches, both good and bad, intact. Jesus used a similar illustration in the lesson you are about to study. He said that for his children to bear fruit effectively, God must prune them, cutting out what is bad or a drain on their spiritual vitality, and thereby allowing his life-giving graces to flow unhindered into the believer's lives. As they respond to that pruning process, it enables them to bear much fruit. How is God pruning your life right now? Are you resisting his wise pruning, or are you trusting in his wisdom to bring forth even greater fruit for his glory? Now turn to John 15. Very well-known passage. And here's what it says. Jesus is speaking to his disciples. Presumably they're on their way to the Garden of Gethsemane. I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away, and every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. Already you are clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. If anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away like a branch and withers. and the branches are gathered, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. By this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, and so prove to be my disciples. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be full. This is my commandment, that you love one another, as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that someone laid down his life for his friends. You are my friends, if you do what I command you. No longer do I call you servants, for the servant does not know what the master is doing. But I have called you friends, for all that I have heard from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should abide, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give it to you. These things I command you, so that you will love one another. So now we're going to go on to questions. And the first question says this: what does it mean to prune a vine? Like literally. Yeah. To cut away a branch that is not bearing fruit or flowers or whatever. To remove it from. Next question. Why would a gardener do this to a fruitful branch? The whole thing is fine. So why, Eric, would you do that? The plant is healthier and grows better when it is pruned. Trust me, I know this. I'll tell you a story about that when we get to the lecture. So the lesson says that it we'll see that that pruning increases the branches. What does this passage teach about our ability to perform good works? Look at the part in John 15 when he's talking about them bearing fruit in their lives. Apart from Christ, we can do how much? Nothing. Nothing. It's Jesus that allows and enables us to do what he calls us to do, whatever that is. And if we try to do that on our own, we fail miserably. Our strength to do what God has called us to do comes from him. He is the vine. We are the branch. Next question. What do you think Jesus means by his command to abide or remain in John? Okay. But now we're talking about what it means to abide or to remain. Yes, pruning is part of that process, but what does that mean? To continue to have fellowship with him?
Trust him and walk.
Trust him, walk with him. That was the last thing in sanctification. that sanctification is just a fancy word for becoming more and more like Jesus. Yes. Right. He's a priority. He's our focus. What does that word abide literally? To dwell. What does dwell mean? Tabernacle. I want to really to live in. Yeah. This is the place where you live. Jesus is the place where we live as followers. Just like when you you leave here and you go home, you're going to go to the place where you live. The place that is familiar, the place that is comfortable, a place of growth, hopefully as well. Jesus is the place where we spiritually live. We abide in Him. It's a beautiful word. So this idea of His command to abide also would connote that we already said that. What kinds of people are those who do not abide in Him, do not bear fruit, and are cast into the fire? Spiritually what?
Dead.
Yeah, spiritually dead. Yeah. Non-believers, yeah. They simply don't know Christ. Some may not have heard the gospel. And it isn't that they're bad people. Well, they are. We all are. It's that they either have rejected, either heard the gospel and rejected it, or they've never heard the gospel. They don't know Christ. They don't abide in Christ. Next question. What is the purpose for Jesus' commands and warnings in this passage? What does he say he's trying to do? He says, these things I tell you. Yes, but he says something else. So we can have joy. And that too. But he wants our joy to be full as we understand not only who he is, but what he's done for us. That we will be filled with his joy. I just got a speaking for October. And the theme is joy. I haven't started working on it, but I know one of the things I want to tell those ladies is that joy is different. Happiness is dependent on circumstances, right? First time, we were happy, right? Yeah. Last time I went to Brownell, we were not happy, right? Happiness is dependent on, by the way, the coach had some really great things
He apologized for his players.
The Brownell, I'm not going to about how much we improved. Yeah. But anyway, happiness is dependent on circumstance. Joy is not. Joy remains even in those times. No matter what's going on, we all have cause to rejoice. Even if the only thing is that we know Jesus and we know He died for us and we know that someday we're going to live in a perfect place, that alone is cause for joy, right? Regardless of our outside circumstances. Look, when Paul wrote, rejoice in the Lord always, I'm going to say it again, rejoice. Where was he? He was in a Roman prison, which was not a fun place to be. I'm so happy to be here where I'm being mistreated and living in squalor. No, but he had joy. So joy is not dependent on circumstance. What is the fruit in life that of a believer that he wants to be overflowed? Love. Love for one another. So what do you think Jesus was thinking about as he was having this conversation? Yeah, when he's talking about sacrifice, he knows. He knows what's about to happen. He knows he's going to be arrested. He knows he's going to be separated from his disciples. And so he's thinking about his own sacrificial. If you were a disciple, what would you have thought about those words when you remembered them after? You were looking back on that time and walking
Just
it would have been overwhelming. It should be overwhelming to us what Jesus suffered. I think I told you this before. I watched the Passion of the Christ one time at our church. Showing of Josh was probably 13 years old, 14 years old. And during the I just dissolved into, there's and and I think that it would have helped more than that, right? And we ran away from it, and so they felt sorrow. I don't, but I showed clips. It's hard, but it's good.
I love mixes.
So what is the attitude of worldly people towards you? What? They'll hate us. And they won't understand us. And one last question, just before we go. Do they know about your faith in Christ as they hate Jesus? We're not going to have an out loud discussion. I think what that's asking is, are you living out the faith of Jesus so that others see that? And some are curious and some are.
The person that they hate you. That's the question.
Okay, that's it for today. We'll pick up with the lecture tomorrow.